What's up everyone, it's ENDYMION, and today I want to dive into the ongoing success of one of 2024's biggest games so far, which is Helldivers 2, and why it's doing so well when other AAA Western games seem to be faltering, underperforming, and in some cases even resorting to bot farming in order to fake success. Beyond this, there's a GameSpot editor who is basically attacking all players and saying they're awful human beings for existing, and that using terms like JRPG are racist apparently. We'll get there eventually. To begin, let's start with an article from Forbes titled, Helldivers 2 player retention continues to be remarkable. Helldivers 2 has easily become the breakout hit of 2024 so far, and has captured the hearts and playtime of millions of players across the world. So far, the latest info we have when it comes to how many copies have been sold was in mid-March, which confirmed that Helldivers 2 had crossed the 8 million copies sold, meaning that the game has sold almost as much as Spider-Man 2 has in less time. Of course, it's also available on PC, where the game is currently averaging around 200,000 players plus every single day over 2 months since release. I just want to further state for you all to understand just how crazy that really is, especially these days. After all, when that report came out stating that over 60% of playtime in 2023 was consumed by older games, Helldivers is a remarkable victory where most players don't really budge out of their gaming habits. But this proves that the hype train surrounding this game isn't dying anytime soon. A few days ago, I had a 5-hour binge session of Helldivers myself. Might not sound too long to some of you, but for me to sit there and play a live service multiplayer game for 5 hours straight in 2024 is crazy for me, considering most of my time playing games these past few years has been absorbed by predominantly single-player story-driven games. Yet even I feel the pull to return to Helldivers every other day to blast bugs and robots in the name of democracy. A big part I think of why Helldivers is killing it so much is because it feels like the anti-Western game in a lot of ways. For starters, the game obviously rejects real-world symbolism, and for good reason. But beyond that, if you hadn't noticed, Helldivers also doesn't really follow the mentality and structure of other live service games. Most other multiplayer-only games have seasons which are themed with cosmetics and so on. Destiny 2 and Call of Duty are obvious examples of this. Yet in Helldivers, that sort of structure isn't present, and when you think about it, that actually works in its favor. Most multiplayer games, when they bring new content, they'll have a seasonal trailer like Destiny 2 does, showcasing new weapons, armor, and so on. They'll also show a detailed roadmap where certain events take place and such as well, which is fine if you like to see what's in store for the upcoming season before you buy in, but it also in a way removes that sense of mystery from the game's world as well. Because you know that on this given day, this event will start and will end on this day. Take things like Destiny 2's recent update with the whole Onslaught game mode, you can see where things begin and end very neatly. But when it comes to Helldivers, its world feels more alive and reactive because you not only don't have any seasons detailing content, you genuinely have no idea what the hell is going to happen on any given day at all. For example, a little over a week ago, Arrowhead said that we had successfully pushed back the automatons and called the terminates. So players were having victory laps, just killing stuff and having fun. Then out of nowhere, on a random night suddenly, a massive automaton fleet had entered the system, and players scrambled to push back these crazy robots as all hell broke loose. And it's that reactive, almost real-life-like dog of war feeling for the game that keeps it dynamic. Because I can't tell you when that automaton fleet will be eradicated completely. It's not like Destiny 2 when I know the event will end and begin. Instead, I'm just sitting here, naked on my couch with my legs spread like a hooker in church, and all of a sudden a swarm of filthy robots invade the star system. And I gotta say goodbye to my girlfriend and grab my laser cannon cause democracy calls. That's really cool to me, and I think this sort of gameplay dynamic would be very cool to see in other games as well. It also helps a lot that Helldivers actually kind of bucks the trend of FOMO, or fear of missing out, to an extent as well. Since you could sign in, not play much, and just go enjoy your life, and the community can go shoot stuff and kill aplenty and win back major orders, and you can just sign in at a later date and reap in the awards like medals even if you technically didn't really do anything to contribute to it. Helldivers is one of the only live service multiplayer games where the developers actually kind of reward you for being lazy. But they also realize that, hey, people also have lives and we can't all be playing a live service game 24/7. In a lot of ways, Helldivers 2 is kind of the perfect game for people with full-time jobs, kids, and so on. Cause in other live service games, they usually have a battle pass and such, and you gotta grind those suckers out to level 100 in order to get all the rewards. But if you don't grind enough before the expiry date, you lose the ability to gain those rewards, and that content is then vaulted into the ether and you just kind of lose out. Which means you're forced to engage and push constantly every new season of any given game in order to get anywhere. Whereas Helldivers just kind of goes, nah, we're good, and instead your mini battle passes are just kind of there. And you can level them up whenever you want to in whichever order you want to do it, and you don't feel entitled to reject your family, girlfriends, boyfriends, or job in order to get to the latest content. I don't know about you, but I really like that. I really do, because it means I don't ever feel like I'm missing out in a sense. And I wish more games had their battle passes just available for use even if you weren't there when they released. I think Halo Infinite does this as well, actually. I could be wrong about that, but let me know in the comments if I'm remembering that correctly. But this is just another reason why Helldivers 2 is just absolutely killing it. Then, for example, you have this article from thatparkplace.com titled Sweet Baby Inc. influenced Alan Wake 2 allegedly using bots to boost sales. This has become a worryingly prevalent move by publishers and studios in recent years, and it's not a good sign at all. So apparently Remedy Entertainment has been boosting their social media channels when it comes to their games, Alan Wake 2 to be specific here. According to Twitter user the Master of the TDS, who's compiled boatloads of screenshots of these bot accounts artificially boosting their channels, and it's so obvious it's painful, like look at some of this stuff. I'm excited to hear that Alan Wake 2 has updated its minimum PC requirements to be optimized for older gaming rigs. This opens up the game to a wider audience, allowing more players to experience the thrilling storytelling and immersive gameplay. Can't wait to dive in. And just look at what these bots are saying. Yes, finally, my ancient potato PC can run Alan Wake 2. I can finally dust off my old PC and join in on the Alan Wake 2 fun. Good news for my old PC, finally I can join the Alan Wake 2 fun train. As you can see, the bot comments, they just keep coming and they all sound similar. First of all, if you're a terminally online cretin like myself, you know these comments do not sound genuine at all. The use of exclamation marks aplenty and how every comment is just people saying, yay, my insert PC here can run Alan Wake 2, can't wait to get my game on stuff, it's just not genuine. The comments would instead be someone making fun of Remedy, one guy posting a meme, and someone else saying they want jiggle physics in the update. These people, however, aren't real. And as you can see on screen as I post more of what the Master of the TDS has compiled here, the engagement is just fake across the board. But this is the difference between a game that is struggling for relevancy and financial gain compared to something that organically has built its audience like Helldivers has. The Master of the TDS has also found the same sort of botting on other platforms like IGN, who are also doing the same thing to farm engagement as well. And we've also seen this sort of bot engagement from streams like when G4 Tech TV came back. And their streams had like 30,000 people apparently watching them live, yet their chat was crawling at a snail's pace. Which, if you know anything about online engagement and live streaming, if there's 30,000 people in a chat watching something, that live chat is going Sonic the Hedgehog levels of fast in terms of comments coming through. The reason why a lot of these companies from IGN, Remedy, and more are attempting to boost their platforms is simply because they're losing relevancy and whatever they're pushing is not resonating with audiences. By the way, the Alan Wake 2 botting situation was to promote some update to the game. Yet Remedy clearly saw that when that update was released, not nearly enough people cared or were even paying attention to it. The difference between Remedy's lack of engagement and something like Arrowhead's Helldivers is evident. What we're seeing are companies failing to make products that actually resonate with the worldwide audience. But I also find it interesting how every game that doesn't resonate, it leans a certain way politically and ideologically as well. Alan Wake 2 is of course a Sweet Baby product, and it's evident that their fingers can be felt throughout the entirety of that game's DNA. As someone who played and platinumed Alan Wake 2, I can confirm the game is not a good time and I do not recommend it whatsoever. Whereas with Helldivers, which just removes the real-world symbols and nonsense from the equation and delivers a fun game where stupidity reigns supreme, like airstriking your friends or getting thrown around like a rag doll, instead most Western games are far more interested in the diversity and inclusion of their games. Here's a post from Remedy's annual report 2023 that user Mangalawyer on Twitter posted, which is called Remedy's Materiality Matrix. It says here, as a result of the materiality analysis carried out in 2022, Remedy has 7 key topics on which it focuses in sustainability work. These can be placed in a materiality matrix which illustrates Remedy's most material and impactful sustainability topics. In the matrix, the y-axis shows the level of importance of a topic to our stakeholders based on the materiality analysis. The x-axis shows the potential impact caused by making the right choices regarding a topic. As you can see based on their graph here, the thing that reigns supreme above all else is diversity, equity, and inclusion. Yet at the very bottom of what's important to Remedy, according to their own report, is responsible gaming, which is signified as the color gray. If we look down here, it even coincides with what says memorable experiences for fans across the globe. So what this means is that in Remedy's own vision of what's important when it comes to making a video game is that the diversity and wokeness of a project always takes precedent. Yet your actual enjoyment as a player and consumer of video games is the least important thing to Remedy when it comes to them making a video game for mass market appeal. Isn't that crazy to see? That these development studios are openly stating confidently that your enjoyment and your actual satisfaction with a product is last place when it comes to what's important when it comes to making their video game in the first place. As someone who played Alan Wake 2, I think this graph perfectly encapsulates that game's experience because I never felt like what I was playing was being made for my own enjoyment. And the game would constantly pull control from my hands to show me another cutscene instead of just letting me play the game. And often than not, whenever someone tells you what their favorite moment of Alan Wake 2 is, it's almost never actual gameplay or the systems within it. No mention of how the enemy variety is terrible, the guns lack any imagination, and the actual interactability of its environment is piss poor at best. If we had a graph of games that don't respect your time or money, we would have Alan Wake 2 on the far left, with games like Helldivers 2 on the far right of the same graph. Everything Helldivers is, from its ragdoll physics, dynamic live service elements, and how all the different stratagems react to the world's environment and so on, are things that would be, in Remedy's opinion, not deemed important. If Helldivers 2 was made by Remedy, the game would be 80% cutscenes, feature 1 or 2 single enemy types, and you could basically just wield your standard pistol and maybe a shotgun at best, but this sort of experience is considered what these game companies prioritize. And need I remind you that in 2023, Alan Wake 2 won big at the Game Awards and on video game websites, while the actual player base at large rejected the game pretty much entirely, and for good reason. Which makes you wonder what the hell is going on exactly with what these Western game studios and the websites want versus what the players actually desire instead. Because based on the critical reception to Alan Wake 2, it should have been a big winner, right? Why didn't you all play the game? Why didn't you buy the $80 Canadian single player game where you can walk through hallways shooting the same 3 enemy types sparingly? Why don't you enjoy games that constantly rip control from you to feed you a nonsensical story where they race swapped a character because Sweet Baby told them to do so? The truth is that what they're selling and pushing you are clearly not buying, and they obviously hate that. They want you to accept it, and they're angry anytime they push these terrible games that audiences always reject them. As I said before, Alan Wake 2 has not turned a profit yet. It's been out for 7 months as of the making of this video. And in terms of AAA development, what Alan Wake 2 has managed to underachieve is terrible, all things considered. According to GameDeveloper.com, Alan Wake 2 has sold around 1.3 million copies since release, which for a AAA Western game, that is horrendously bad, by the way, like biblically bad. And Helldivers 2 has sold 8 million as of last month. I doubt Alan Wake 2 would even reach Helldivers numbers in 10 years, never mind 10 months. Helldivers does seem to be the rare exception to the rule when it comes to the continued underperformance of Western slop coming out these days. It's also apparently the 5th most played PlayStation game right now. Of course, the other 4 spots are held by the usual suspects like Fortnite, COD, and so on. But this just keeps proving time and again that the best received games by actual players are the ones that respect their time, money, and most importantly, themselves. Then of course you have GameSpot employees saying that all white men are the devil and JRPGs are a racist term. From thatparkplace.com we have this article titled, GameSpot editor Jessica Cogswell attacks gamers as incel gamer dudes, previously shared animus against white people. Don't harass this person or anything because they have lost their mind. Anyway, Jessica said stuff on Twitter in terms of Gamergate 2 and such as, "Man, I don't know how all these incel gamer dudes are expecting games to have hot characters and characters representative of them. At the same time, at these replies, get a life, weirdos. When did we ever say we wanted representation? Every other effing time your collective tweets it's about how woke characters and women are in every role and you miss cis-het white men being allowed in things." Right away, Jessica is clearly yet another woke weirdo working in games, which is nothing new at all. Secondly, why does representation seem to matter to people like Jessica, but also conveniently doesn't matter if white men are asking for representation as well? Why is it that in these people's minds representation is somehow only exclusive to people who aren't white men? This Jessica lady is just another crazy person who's drank the Kool-Aid and has the same opinions as literally every other person in her industry. All of these people, they feel like NPCs you'd see in a town in a video game or something. There's no original thoughts in any of their heads. Everything is just white people bad, everyone who isn't white man good, and all the same nonsense. Then of course Jessica goes off on the deep end where she claims the term JRPG is somehow racist. Back in 2023, one user said, "The term was created to differentiate JRPGs from Western ones, so you're literally saying that it was a term created to otherize an outgroup. Interesting that you can somehow think that's not literally a racist thing," to which Jessica then said, "I've used the term JRPG for years and honestly Hannah is completely right and I'm going to stop. It is a category that doesn't need to exist. Games should be separated by content, not the race of the people creating them. I think this is one of those things we need to do away with. Even if you don't mean it in a negative way, think about how it comes across for a few minutes and I think you'll realize it feels a bit ick. Sure, we can talk about the differences between Western RPGs and Eastern RPGs, but Western should not be the default for the term RPG. Also, I think if you are white, please consider thinking before tweeting, actually I don't know that it's racist because, then promptly delete that tweet and listen to the opinions of the people you're putting in a box." Good lord, the NPC behavior is off the charts with this person. Listen, saying something is a JRPG is not racist whatsoever. In fact, it's actually a good thing to say. Because JRPGs versus Western RPGs are completely different in terms of how they're structured, the characters look and act, not to mention the usual ideological nonsense of the stark difference between the two as well. Looking at a game like Fallout, for example, that's a Western RPG, and then you compare how that game looks to something like Final Fantasy, which is obviously a JRPG, and they couldn't be any more different in terms of themes, music, and more. And honestly, at this point, using a term like JRPG when talking about your game is likely going to boost your sales than anything else. Because whenever I see a Western RPG these days, I just know they're going to fill it to the brim with nonsense at any given moment. You know the stuff, multiple pronouns, ugly female characters, boring and repetitive gameplay, all of it. I also notice when it comes to Western-made RPGs, many things are just not as interesting, whereas in Final Fantasy, for example, they have a certain tone and flair to it all that Western games can't hope to match. So using a term like JRPG is not racist at all, and I think anyone who believes that is a moron, but also completely out of touch with what players really want in games. If these people haven't noticed already, a lot of players are looking for anything that actually isn't made in the West already. Whether it's manga, anime, or games, they want nothing to do with the slop that's being pushed out of the rectums of Western studios. And I think having a term as old as gaming itself like JRPG be able to differ which game is what is very important. Because obviously Eastern developers have much different wants and philosophies when compared to their Western counterparts, and for good reason. And again, like I said, there's a stark difference in how these games look and play when you compare stuff like Fallout against Final Fantasy. And of course, when it comes to women, it's just a night and day difference. Western games, you have ugly, giga-chinned monstrosities that have no curves and look gender ambiguous. Whereas in the East, women actually look feminine and look actually like women, which again, they hate that as well in the West. And like always, when it comes to woke activists, it's never enough no matter how much virtue signaling you do. Jessica said more moronic things like, "Sorry, but I am very tired of certain groups of feminists mourning the death of very old, problematic white women, while remaining quiet when women of color who had their whole lives ahead of them are murdered. The amount of white women I see constantly mourning the Queen or RBG when there are people of color and trans women being attacked and in need of support is giving me a constant headache. Like I keep telling you guys, it's never enough to appease these sort of NPCs." Another really tiring example here is another user who is friendly with GameSpot's NPC employee Jessica, who sees the board of the Xbox gaming leadership team and then says this: "This is barely diverse, this is below the bare minimum. To which both of these NPCs then agree by saying, "Yeah, I've been seeing people praise this and I'm so confused. Yeah, like this how things have looked for many years now. It is not progressive or radical at all. Like there are 13 people on this board and 10 are white. These morons can't fathom that when it comes to jobs, you have to hire the best people for the job. But that's not important to them. It doesn't matter if these 13 people at Xbox are competent or not. What only matters to them is simply that they're too white." But this is how NPCs think. It's all about diversity and representation, and actual skill or talent has no meaning or place in the conversation. Isn't that weird to you? Jessica is peak NPC behavior, and she's the kind of person who would definitely get robbed and then refuse to give the cops an accurate description because she doesn't want to perpetuate stereotypes. Someone could steal her car, and she would actually think to herself, well, maybe they needed the car more than me, and that somehow this is white men's fault. Remember that one liberal guy who got stabbed and then died? And his girlfriend went to apologize to the guy who murdered her boyfriend in jail? Jessica is likely like that as well. These defeatist liberal weirdos are why so much is wrong with the world today. They'd rather lay down and let a tank drive over them, exploding all their bones and killing them, and be fine with it because a person of color is driving the tank. You ever wonder how things can get even worse? Just clone people like Jessica 1,000 times over and you have a society full of NPCs who will just virtue signal as they're literally being lit on fire. It's very tiring and pathetic to me, especially when I see people like this aplenty on social media thinking they somehow need to renounce their skin color or something. You don't have to apologize for anything anyone has done that isn't you. Especially when these white liberal women attempt to say white people need to answer for some crimes in the past, like none of it makes any sense. I wasn't alive 100 or 200 years ago, why am I apologizing for something I wasn't even around for? Plus, not to mention, they always talk about how we can't judge a person based on color, yet they do exactly that and lump entire demographics into groups on a whim. White people are not bad people, the same way I don't look at all black people and say they're all bad or something. There are bad people in every color of skin across the world. There are also good people in those same skin colors too. Can we stop being this moronic and perpetuating this NPC-like behavior? The only diversity that really matters is that of thought, and these people like Jessica are the antithesis of that notion. She's likely someone who would find somebody squatting in their home and would go, well, I am homeless now, and I'm very cold and all my belongings have been stolen, but at least I'm not a racist. These people should be ashamed of themselves, there's no other way of putting it. And it's these kinds of NPCs that are assembling together like the Hall Monitor Avengers to say how games should be made through the articles they write and the groups that they form. Finally, to close this video out, there's one more thing this Jessica NPC said that just boggled my mind with how out of touch it was, which said, also be cognizant of the fact that white people literally create an industry and community that is super toxic and competitive, and causes increased tension in marginalized groups. Know our role in this, have some grace and sit down. There's just so much white savior in these tweets, it's off the charts, man. What's my role exactly as a white person? I didn't know this was a D&D group. I thought we're all just humans. Everything I read from this Jessica person, it just keeps getting worse, dude. And saying white people created toxic and competitive industries? Do you mean capitalism? Are you mad that capitalism exists now too? This person is a communist, aren't they? I wouldn't be surprised. Look, everything Jessica says is what is echoed by the greater gaming industry in staggering numbers, and then you wonder why things are the way they are. No wonder GameSpot hasn't been relevant in so long. The only competent people that came out of GameSpot was the guy who used to review games there and then went off to create Supergiant Games. And that other reviewer guy, whose name I don't remember, that now works at Larian Studios. The rest of them seem to be like Jessica here, just your typical pronouns in bio, bows down to everyone because I'm white and apologize for their identity. You want to know why games like Helldivers 2 are so rare from Western studios these days? Because a lot of them think like Jessica here, and that's why it's so bad right now. It's the Remedy Matrix chart all over again. The most important initiative for these people is always pushing DEI. And actual enjoyment and consumer satisfaction always comes dead last. It's pathetic, but it's not surprising. Helldivers 2 continues to dominate the market and the conversation for good reason. The creators have largely rejected the insertion of real-world symbols, and their continued success has become an anomaly in the gaming world. But maybe if these sites like GameSpot and IGN stopped slobbering the knob of bad video games like Alan Wake 2 so much, and actually made content that resonated with audiences, maybe we wouldn't be where we are right now. Legacy media, in my opinion, can't die soon enough, friends, but as always, let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you for watching, subscribe, like, and share the video, and thanks to my patrons for their undying support. Go enjoy some games that don't suck today, and thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.